Hey everybody, I wanted to talk to you today about the cost of unhealthy relationships. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie McPhail. I'm a transformational life coach. I help women rediscover their purpose after unhealthy relationships. The reason for that is because I spent 15 plus years going from one unhealthy relationship to another one until I finally decided to make a change and completely recreate my life. It is not easy to make a decision to leave someone who is not healthy for you. And we very much live in a society that has kind of set us up to believe that women are the ones who need to take care of everything. We need to just put our needs to the side. We need to not think of ourselves at all. And we need to be the really sole caregivers of the other people in the family. And that goes along, for some of us, that goes along with money. For some of us, that also means that we are not having any jobs because we are home taking care of the family. So I wanted to get a little bit more detailed on cost, because the cost is going to be something really important. It's going to help you get out of the relationship if this is something that is holding you back. And here's what's going on. So while I was in these different relationships, I happened to be the one that was making the money. And again, I know a lot of the times it's not the way it is. Most of the time it is the female who is staying home with the family. I did not have any children, luckily. But I was the one that was making all the money, but I was getting assistance from my significant others. And I kind of felt like I wasn't able to live on my own, to take care of myself. But during the relationships, I had two long-term relationships that were both very, very, very toxic, and some other little ones in between that were also very toxic. But the two long ones, I actually lived with them. And during the time of being in those relationships, I lost myself. There were times at night where I just wasn't sleeping. I was drinking more. I was partying more. I was doing anything to kind of cover up my feelings. I didn't want to deal with the fact that I was with these unhealthy relationships, that I was in this unhealthy pattern, and I didn't want to feel the feelings I was having. I didn't want to deal with the reality that I was constantly walking on eggshells and trying to take care of somebody else. During that time, I got I found out I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, and which made it uncomfortable. I also got a hernia. I hurt my back. I actually hurt my back when I was 18 in a car accident, but my back issues just got worse and worse and worse. And they really became so that it was sometimes my leg would give out. I would have pain shooting down one of my legs. And basically the doctor said there was nothing they could do. It was just going to be that I was going to have to live with it, or I was going to have to get surgery, and even surgery was not going to make it any better. I had bursitis in my left shoulder, so there was some swelling going on in my shoulder, and it was painful to pick up things and carry things. Towards the end, I was in a depression. I got a blood clot in my arm. And I mean, realistically, the list of things that were going on were huge. And I was really, really trying to deal with it. So those were the physical issues that were going on. Now let me talk a little bit about, and the little emotional stuff. The emotional stuff, not being able to sleep, feeling like I was ashamed of the person that I was with, ashamed of the person I was becoming, embarrassed to tell anyone what was really going on. Those were all really big, huge emotional shifts that I started to notice. And so my first long-term relationship, it was a boyfriend, and we had bought a house together. And I was so afraid to leave the relationship because I was afraid that I would not be able to handle the payments of this house on my own. And not only that, but I was told over and over again that if I did leave, he would rather drive his truck into the side of the house than give me my share of the house. Those were the words exactly. And of course, I was concerned with some of the emotional stuff that was being done to me, with the fear of breaking off the relationship because I was afraid for my safety. But I was also not sure what to do. I didn't know if I could move out. I didn't know, selling the house felt like it was going to take that much longer to do. And I finally made a decision that I truly tried to talk him into giving me his share of the house. And he finally agreed. But I had to give him his half. And I say half because at that point in Long Island, which is where I now still live, the housing market was at its peak. And the tiny house that I had gotten, that he had done some work on, but I had been the one doing the investing and paying all of the bills. The tiny house that we had gotten, it was a little cape. It had gone up like 3 times, a little bit more, over the course of the few years that we owned the house together. So his half of the house was $120,000. That's a lot of money. And so I would think about that and I would say, oh my God, $120,000. Maybe I need to try to fix it. Maybe I need to try to work it out. That's a lot of money to stay in this house. And if I sell the house, it's going to take me that much longer to get away from him. I just wanted him to be out, his name off of the deed. I wanted it to be over. I finally talked him down to $96,000 and I took the deal. I refinanced my house. I gave him $96,000. And a few months later, I started getting phone calls that the car that I had purchased with him, that I had co-signed with him, because I had co-signed with a house and I had co-signed also with a truck that he used to harass me and stalk me, scare me. He had not been paying for it. And part of the deal of me giving him $96,000 was to pay off the truck so that we would no longer have a mutual payment or a mutual lease. You know, my name wouldn't be on there anymore. And he didn't pay. So they started coming after me, and I always paid my bills. And I told them when they called the bank, I said, listen, I will buy this truck. I didn't even know how I was going to do it. But I said, I will buy the truck if I can have it. And they said, we're sorry, but it's not our responsibility to give you the truck. In fact, we can't do that. We can't take it away from him and give it to you. But it is your responsibility to pay for his bill. And I said, well, you know what? At this point, I am so much in debt from already having to take out $96,000 that I'm not going to pay another $10,000 to pay for the rest of his truck and own it, even though I would not have any rights to the truck whatsoever. So they kept calling me, and every time they called, I would tell them the story and I would explain that I was not going to pay, and they told me it was ruining my credit. And I said, you know what, that's fine. And finally, I wrote a letter years later to his mom, and I said, please, I've been through enough. Can you please have him pay for the truck? And within a few weeks, she had actually taken care of it. So I was lucky. But that $10,000 ruined my credit for years. So that's a big cost. Then when I started my relationship with my now ex-husband, if you got to watch any of the webinars that I've done, I talked about how he really wanted to have a really expensive, fabulous, and it was beautiful, Long Island wedding. Well, if you know anything about Long Island weddings and the fact this was at Oheka Castle, which is a really beautiful location for a wedding, it's really a castle, I was left with a $30,000 bill to pay for it. And when I say he didn't pay for it. I'm actually still paying for that bill. $30,000 for a wedding that I did not want in that location, and that I was definitely pressured into before I was ready. $30,000 because I gave in. Then, a few years later into the marriage, he actually attempted to sexually assault me. And after he did that, I went straight to the police and I told them what happened, and they had him arrested. He went straight to jail. His family made me feel bad. They kept telling me that he was going to lose his job and it was going to be all my fault. And it was going to cost $10,000 to get him out of jail. Well, there's that lucky number again, $10,000. I happened to have been saving some money. $10,000 was enough to keep me out of an issue if I lost my job or something happened, and I could pay my bills for a few months. So I had that as like my little nest egg that I was trying to save up. Well, I took that $10,000 out, and I could not go to the actual place where he was in jail because of the fact that I had been issued an order of protection from the state. I was not allowed to have any contact. It was actually, I guess technically a stay away, but I was not allowed to have any contact with him. So I gave the $10,000 to my brother-in-law and I said, listen, I am giving you this $10,000. This is really all the money I have left. I have nothing else to give. I'm giving this to you with the hope that you do the right thing and give it back to me. And he said, of course, I will definitely give it back to you. Well, my brother-in-law was married to my sister-in-law, my ex-husband's sister, and things were not going so well for him either. But long story short, he used the $10,000, got him out of jail, and within a few months, he was already trying to work his way back into the relationship and was on his best behavior and, coming back in, saying all the right things, doing all the right things. And he moved back in. And when the court gave the money back, because he had followed the regulations for the court, so the $10,000 were able to be returned, they returned it to my brother-in-law. So I was excited to be able to take that money and reinvest it. And he said, well, I gave it to our mother-in-law. And I said, why did you do that? That was my money. And he said, well, she said that your now ex-husband owed her money. And since you two were getting back together, she was going to take that money to repay the debt that he had with her because we were a team. And therefore, I should also be responsible for the debt that he owed to her. I don't know about you, but that really doesn't make any sense. He sexually assaulted me. I paid $10,000 and I lost $10,000. After a little bit of time, she finally gave me some money back. So I did get some of it back, but that was all money that was gone. It was not able to be reinvested. I did not get the money back that I had invested into it. So I was thinking about this the other day. The amount of money that I have wasted on unhealthy relationships could have bought me a nice house in certain areas of the country. It could have gotten me a much bigger upgrade of the house that I even currently have. Over $150,000 on unhealthy relationships. So the cost for me was a small house, my health deteriorating, going through a depression. My mental health was a mess. I was living in shame and guilt and frustration and fear and embarrassment and all these different things. So I was getting it from every single angle. Well, I'm here to tell you that right now, if you were to say to me, you'd have to pay another $150,000 to get out of that relationship, I would tell you that it's worth it. As much as I'm still paying off that debt, and I wish that maybe I would have never put myself in that position to begin with, which of course I wish that I hadn't. It is worth every penny to have gotten myself out. When I made the decision to leave and change my life, I took my life back. And in doing so, I actually gave my health back. I gave my sanity back. I gave my physical health back. I gave my ability to create money back. I was not so much in the victim mentality. I was not worried about who was going to come and help me and who was going to come and save me. And I started to look at things a little bit differently. And I started investing in the right types of behaviors. And that was really sticking to a yoga routine, starting meditation, eating healthier, exercising, which I had already been doing before, but it kind of took on a different meaning for me the way I was exercising. I took money and invested it into my mental health. I got myself a therapist that I saw once a week. I got myself a coach that I paid for. And all of those things were what got me to a healthier place physically, emotionally, and in the long run, financially as well. I know money's tight. I know it can be difficult, and I know that it can be scary. But putting the right investment in yourself is worth it. And right now, I have 0 back issues. I have no shoulder issues. Polycystic ovarian syndrome weirdly went away. Isn't that strange? It's this thing that people can't have children with, and it's causing all these issues. Well, it was really stress related because it is completely gone. I had had some thyroid issues. I had had Raynaud's. I had all these different things that I didn't even think about because they were just like, oh, I'm getting older. This is just what's happening. All these variety of health issues, the trouble sleeping, all of that, all of those things went away. My physical health and my emotional health were hugely affected. That cost was huge to me. And the blood clot could have killed me. I could have died. I mean, when I found out I had the blood clot, I was shocked. I went through, that was what's really put me into the depression of, wow, here I am. I've done this to myself. I've allowed this to happen to myself from all the stress that I've been trying to deal with. I kept thinking I could handle it. I kept thinking I could deal with it. I was the strong person. I was the independent person. I could take care of everybody else. I wasn't focusing on taking care of me. Again, the money that I invested into taking care of myself, it's the kind of thing that after a few weeks of maybe going to Starbucks or going out to eat or something like that, it actually pays for itself so much more quickly, because I can tell you now that at 40 years old, I feel healthier emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially than I ever had before. None of those things would have been possible. So the cost of staying in these unhealthy relationships is way more than money. It's way more than just trying to figure out where you're going to go. Because you know what? For a little while, you might have to live with a friend. You might have to get a roommate. You might have to go and live with your parents for a little while, depending on the relationship that's going on there. But whatever you need to do to get back on your feet, but really invest the time, invest the money, do the right investments on yourself, because you are worth it. There is no reason for you to find an early grave, for you to feel like you're going to hurt yourself, to be drinking yourself to death, to be using drugs to cover up how you're feeling, to be getting into jail, getting into legal issues, coming and finding more unhealthy, toxic relationships and attracting more unhealthy people into your life. None of those things are worth it. The cost of your life is too high, and you have wonderful, amazing qualities to give to this earth, to humanity, and you can't do it if you are in this stuck, toxic place. Because I was not able to give my all and do my best for other people when I was living in that drama-filled, stressed environment. I wasn't. So I want you to think about the costs. What is the cost for you? What's the emotional cost, the physical cost, the spiritual cost, the actual financial cost of not taking care of yourself now? Today is the day. Be your own knight in shining armor. Stop being the victim. You have the power inside of you. You just need to get the right help. Thank you so much. See you soon.